Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Work Tech. It's George LaRocque, and I'm excited to share some new funding news in the industry. Pep Talk, a team experience platform, has announced a $3.6 million round of growth capital. And I'm joined by co-founder and CEO James Brogan to learn more about the deal and more about Pep Talk. Welcome, James.
George, thanks a million for the opportunity. Great to have a chance to tell you a little bit about Pep Talk, our journey to here, and I suppose where we're going next.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. I know you're busy. It's busy running a high growth company like yours, and I'd love it if you could tell everyone a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Pep Talk to start things off.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks again. So as I say, my name, James Brogan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Pep Talk. Pep Talk is it's a 4-year-old company. We're headquartered at the moment in Dublin, in Ireland, and that's where the company has been, I suppose, building slowly and carefully and strategically over the last 4 years. George, we have been always passionate about, I suppose, becoming a global company, but at the same time, we've been very conscious of getting the right fundamental levers in place to make that happen. Getting our product in the right place, now getting our investments and our funding in the right place, and then also the team. So in the last number of weeks, we've hired some great people, some of whom I know, Tara Sullivan, who's joining us as our CMO. So we're getting great caliber of talent now coming to join us. So it's a really, really exciting time. And I think the space we're in, Tom, we all know the changes within the world of work. Pep Talk has a particular focus on teams. It's been my both kind of professional and life experience of working in teams, and the feeling we all have when we're part of great teams. What's our role in that, I think is really what I'd love to talk to you today about.
Cool. Well, I'm going to definitely ask you some questions about the product, but just to get the deal out there, I'm curious, you touched on a little bit of this, but the timing of the deal, was it what was happening in the business that led you to raise your funding now, sort of that, that foundation you talked about, or something that you saw in the market, or a little of both?
Yeah, I guess it's like everything. I suppose it's probably a number of different factors, definitely. So on the first hand, there's a definite pull factor from our existing customers, George. So at the moment, we're lucky enough to work with a lot of multinationals such as Northern Trust, Verizon, PayPal, Global Payments, and we worked with them in a European capacity initially. Now we're branching into the US, so those customers are pulling us into the US, which is a great way as a startup to I think come to the US, come with some referenceable customers, come with traction. So I think that's that first piece where we have that really strong pull from existing customers. I suppose combined then with that has been, as you say, our evolution as an organization and our readiness now with our team and our product to really enter the US market. We probably could have come a little bit sooner, but we felt that, let's get all of our levers in place, as I touched on, to make that happen. So personally speaking, I'm moving to the US in January. So at the moment I'm living in Dublin in Ireland. So our New York office is where I'm going to be based. And listen, there'll be plenty of travel, I'm sure, as a part of that. So we're really excited to be not only as a founder coming to the US, which I think is important, just again in the context of our ambition. We're not just gonna, you have to be here. I think that's as important just from a serendipitous, getting to meet people. I get great energy when I step off the plane and I land in JFK and I look across that skyline. For a young founder like myself to come and see the opportunity over here is huge. And I suppose thirdly then, George, just the current world of work and the landscape and the challenges I guess organizations are having with, in particular, trying to build culture in a hybrid world. I think next year you're going to see that continue to be a challenge. I think organizations are settling into some version of a hybrid model. depending on the industry, but definitely some level of flexibility, we believe, needs to certainly stay in place. And that presents challenges then. So how do we build culture? How do we build trust? And then more strategically, where does culture live? And obviously at one point, we had this lovely saying, culture carriers, where in the office, you come in, there's always 2 or 3 people there that kind of carry that sense of engagement and energy. And that's kind of been lost. So now we need to be more intentional. The osmosis culture, we feel, is now dead, and we've now moved into this different phase. So definitely that last piece is now is the time. Now is the time for Pep Talk to step in and solve this pretty major pain point for organizations around their culture and how they build more intentionality and proactivity into how they create the type of experience that employees are now looking for.
Yeah, I like all of that. I love the name too. Pep Talk is it's a great name. It means a lot of things in both directions of that pep talk.
Well, I think it's a positive word, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think most organizations now are looking for positivity, and they're looking for energy. And I think that's really what Pep Talk's about. It's about enabling teams, their managers, and the organization then as a whole to just bring that positive. Simple things sometimes, George, can make a huge difference to my experience of working in an organization. And I think sometimes we can we get lost in the complexity of so many different things and stuff that employees have to deal with. And sometimes it can be as simple as, how was your week? How was your month? Coming from a manager into me as an employee, and how a simple question from my perspective, and I'll walk you through how we enable that, how we bring that to life in the product, maybe in a couple of minutes. But at a really high level, I think they're the 3 main levers as to why we're here, George, and we're excited.
Yeah. And so it sounds like the primary plan for the funding is this expansion into the US and within your customers and bringing in new customers. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean the primary focus is definitely we've a really interesting and exciting product roadmap that we have been, I suppose, looking to accelerate into over the next 6 months, George. So that's the first piece in terms of enhancing and elevating the product. And then on the sales and marketing side, yes, we will be looking to invest in that both here in the US and also in our Dublin office. So yeah, I mean, from a fundraising perspective, this is about it's about growth, but it also, and this is something that's shared with our venture capital partners, Venture Wave. They are looking for growth, but obviously the market is somewhat different, George, than how it was 12 months ago. So now it's about looking at this funding and seeing, what's the most focused strategic way we can grow, but at the same time ensure that from a burn perspective, from a cash flow perspective, that we're managing that in a thoughtful way. And I think that maybe is a shift for a lot of startups and how they try and run their business. And again, I think because we're a little bit, we're at this a little bit of time now, we've began to understand that a little bit better. So I think that represents something of a, for us, it's not, that's ultimately the type of business we want to be. We want to be successful, we want to grow, but it's about growth while also building a profitable business and being okay with saying that and talking about that. So I think that represents, the type of business we want to be, and we share that vision with our investment partners who actually have in their own right built and sold a business here in the US as Irish entrepreneurs. So they've a very impressive story themselves, and they're an impact investment fund as well. So it's important to them not only that we're investing in a business, but in a business that we believe is doing a positive, we're making a positive impact on the world of work and obviously on society as a whole.
Yeah. So it seems like all the timing has lined up well for you. I mean, the work tech space, while every area of capital investment, VC has taken a hit in the last 6 months, we've really outperformed the rest of tech as far as how much of a hit or how much investment is coming in. And, but the calculus has really changed when I talk about that timing where yeah, I would never say that investors were throwing money at just ideas,
Mm.
but now, you've got to have the kind of traction, momentum, customers, product fit, validation that you've talked about. So that it's interesting that in many ways, it's your moment at this time. So I'll be curious to see how that goes for you. I could tell you New York's
Yeah.
also a great work tech community. There are a lot of companies there, founders, as well as potential customers for yourself who are progressive and thinking about these issues. So you
Yeah.
picked a good spot to launch from.
Yeah, totally. And I think that was important for us as well. I suppose coming to the US, getting a location that obviously allowed us to service and build relationships with new business and existing customers. But I think your point is well made, George. For me, New York still represents, a melting pot of ideas and that sense of progression in terms of the world of work. And I see that on the, in just conversations you have on the street. There's just a great, you know, the office and the work environment here isn't without its challenges, but I feel there's a sense of always that sense of innovation and optimism, and seeing solutions like Pep Talk as a different way of looking at things. And we are certainly trying to disrupt and get people to think a little bit differently about how they can embrace this new world of work and look at things differently. So yeah, we're excited, and I'm bringing my wife and my two kids as well, so they're going to
Oh,
be
great.
joining me for the adventure. So it's going to be both from a professional perspective, an exciting journey, but also from a personal perspective, there'll be lots of excitement as well.
Oh, that's great. So, well, you've been itching to talk about the product, and I think we've covered the deal and
Yeah.
the context well enough. So, how does the product work? Let's get a little closer to the product and tell us about team experience versus employee experience, or maybe not versus, but how they
Mm. Yeah, no,
align
totally.
and yeah.
So team experience at its core is about how do we bring leaders and teams together? So how do we connect them in an emotional and meaningful way? I think it's really interesting when you look at, for example, Microsoft's report recently, George, around this kind of productivity paranoia piece.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
at its core, the piece that's missing there is trust between the employee and the employer. And there's definitely been a shift in what we would call the sort of psychological contract between the employer and the employee, and the expectations on both sides. So what team experience is trying to do is put a different narrative on how teams and their leader interact, and acknowledging that where culture used to live, which is, let's call it the office culture, that is no longer fit for purpose. So now we need to think differently. And the team experience idea is about then how do we create habits and behaviors on a monthly basis, which is sort of the cycle we build, because we want to build momentum and energy and a continuum of activities. And as I touched on before, when we spoke previously, to look at engagement and the whole employee experience ideal as something that's much more active and alive than something that we're simply measuring and then maybe walking away and measuring. And most organizations, the measuring is the easy part. It's the action and the intervention that's the harder part. And a pep talk, sometimes I think, George, between the organization and the employee, there can be a lot of challenges with designing interventions that are fit for purpose for everyone. So that's why, when you think about it, most organizations now are broken into different units and teams, and that's where we're spending a lot of our time. So what the product does is it's kind of built in 3 stages. So we start by actually looking at team experience, and we go in and we run a little bit of sentiment analysis, and we'll ask some questions to just help understand, right, what's the experience like within this particular team. And the team can be a 20-person team, a 50-person team. Our onboarding kind of infrastructure will allow an organization to sort of figure out kind of what works best for them. But that kind of insight, rather than kind of disappearing off into the organization's a black hole of data, it becomes very real for teams. And then what we invite them to do is have a conversation. So then they'll come in and they'll look at their team check-in and they'll say, okay, maybe we're burnt out. Maybe we're struggling with connection. Maybe we have some issues in terms of communication. So what it's doing is it's surfacing up inhibitors to performance, inhibitors to engagement, and then the manager will invite Pep Talk on our software to start looking at some interventions. So again, the intervention may be, here's a pathway to take on. We call them pathways, and George, they're simply some journeys that an individual or his team can go on to help with the particular challenge that team has taken on. So if we look at it in a really easy way, say burnout. So burnout's been a big topic for a long time, and the last 3 years. But the problem we see as with burnout is, here's a mindfulness app to go and help you with your burnout. And then on Monday morning, you come back into work, and really the reason why you're burnt out is because it's the environment that you're in. So we need to start talking about what's that environment look like between me and my team, because that's kind of what the experience is like. Monday morning, what does it feel like? What does it feel like to work with this team? Do I trust them? Do I know them? Am I prepared to go an extra 10% for that person because I care about them ultimately? I mean, that's ultimately what underpins performance is some of that, what people might call softer, but really is the most powerful elements of high performance, which is understanding each other on a human level. So if you think of it, by understanding a little bit more about what's happening on a human level in our team, and then by Pep Talk suggesting some interventions and pathways to take on, and really importantly, we're going to take them on collectively. So we're going to do them as a team. So it's not, and that's, again, we want to be really clear that, there may be other solutions that may help you with a particular, for example, maybe personal well-being problem that you might have. We're very much, and making kind of no apology for us, what we are trying to do is create a closer connection between the team and their leader by taking on and having a collective experience. So, watching some stuff together. We also provide the manager with what we call as a team talk, George, which is a monthly commitment by a leader to give 20 minutes back to his team to talk about a topic and ask some questions in respect of the insights. So again, it's not just going to disappear, that we're actually going to have a conversation about it. And for us, culture and the environment is about conversations and having human conversations. So the software, when you think about it, it's enabling an insight to be developed at a very local level. So again, that experience becomes less about the org and more about the team. I then have a manager who's really engaged in my experience within that team, and then we're actually going to do something about it. So it's that insight action kind of loop that we're quite proud of, that we believe is quite different. And we're not just doing surveys, we're really narrowing in on what we believe is the most important facets of the whole team experience dynamic. And we have a number of behavioral psychologists that work in the team. We've 1 or 2 academic institutions that are now supporting us into 2023 as we build more and more data and support for the research that we've already done around team experience. So it's a really exciting time for us, and we're lucky enough to have, I just say, a stable of customers that are now seeing the impact that this can have, and sort of see, the opportunity for next year to delve more deeply into team culture, team dynamics, and really building into that for next year.
Yeah. I can tell you that tracks with what we're seeing with the, as really work tech is emerging sort of out of HR tech, employee first, experience driven, enabling the team sort of in the flow with the team, in the flow of work, and really important what you mentioned there, that insight to action. So we've got a lot of tools that tell you what you need to focus on, but they don't help you actually do the work of focusing on it. And that's a key differentiator in comparison to a lot of what I've seen in this space. So I think
and as I touched on, let's look at engagement as more about action and less about measurement. I think the organizations have loads of data now. I think they struggle, as you say, with building action plans. And we always vision out an organization where you have 1,000 people, you have different parts of the organization with different challenges, then getting into different interventions, but ultimately that's serving the overall purpose of the organization. But they've been much more focused and strategic in regard to the type of interventions they're running, and our leaders are taking on more ownership of solving some of those issues. And I think that represents, from a leadership perspective, where leaders need to now, grab a hold of their team and take a little more responsibility for what that experience is going to feel like. Because I think the idea of just getting people back to work, into the office, obviously there'll be certain organizations, I'd see it play out. I don't know what you think, George, but certainly there'll probably be a cohort of organizations that go back to kind of maybe more office centric. There'll be a cohort that sort of go with the hybrid model, but ultimately culture and how it comes to life is going to underpin every organization. And I feel culture has become, to your point, in terms of the emergence of work tech and the emergence of the employee experience, as just, I think we're only at the start, I think, of a lot of organizations really doubling down on this in the next number of years.
Yeah. So what's next? I mean, we know the company's expanding in the US. You're accelerating your product roadmap. That's a lot. That's enough. But is there anything else you're thinking about?
No. I mean, as I touched on, what I think is really important for a startup at our stage is focus and delivering on our plan for 2023. I think at times we can get distracted with, we're coming to the US with a really clear idea of what we want to do in 2023. We have a good team, we have the right people around us, George. And I feel, for me, success for next year will be about, establishing our presence here, getting those key early customers up and away, ensuring that our existing customers who we want to work with back in Europe, but also, as I touched on, the multinationals that we work with in Europe that we're going to now work with in the US, ensuring that those first 12 months here that we successfully on board, execute our plan. So listen, I could talk about lots of exciting other ideas we want to do, and we do want to do them, but I probably learned in the 4 years that one of the hardest things for startups is focus. And I feel for us now, our evolution has been now it's about executing on the plan. So hopefully in a year's time, if we chat again, we'll be able to talk about hitting our numbers, getting our team energized and excited. I'll hopefully have a few people more with me here in the US on the ground to support in that strategy. And then we'll look at 2024 and continue to build and grow. And I feel that's sort of the best way of kind of growing our company every day, every week, trying to deliver on what we want to achieve, but we're really focused. And that's a little bit easier, I think, for me to say now, 4 years down the line. Maybe in 3 years ago, I probably would have had more of a excitable answer with lots of things and stuff. But I feel now it's about, let's get after the plan, and I think everyone will be happy.
Yeah, well, that's that speaks to experience. I tell you, you could have. We had an accelerator call earlier today, and boy, I think I talk about focus every single time. These are much earlier stage startups.
But it's still, and that's the beauty of startup. It is. So there, even at our stage, as you know, there's a lot of different ways we can now, even in terms of our roadmap, and you get customer requests and lots of different ideas about where your product should go. But I think team experience, I think the area we're in, our take on the problem, I guess, is a little bit different. As you say, your inside action hook, I think has really resonated. So it's just about, for us, just doubling down on that and really going deep and becoming really good at that. And then, hopefully that'll bear fruit in terms of everything we want to be as a big global company here in the US.
Yeah. So how can folks learn more? How can they, dig in on the product and the company?
Yeah, well, we've just launched a new website, George, last week. Another new milestone. So peptalk.com. Come on, you'll get a demo of the product. You'll get a bit of a journey, which I know we've touched on a little bit today in terms of how it all comes to life. I'm on obviously LinkedIn and Twitter as well. If people want to kind of reach out directly to me, I'm always keen, whether you're passionate about this area and you're keen to know more, or whether you'd like to maybe join the company as we go on this journey. We're always interested in that as well. So, and again, thanks, George, to yourself for the opportunity today and all the work you're doing, I guess, to highlight and showcase the great technology that's been developed in this emerging space. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks for saying that. And thank you for your time. And I wish you the best of luck. I hope it's not a year. I hope we don't have to wait a year before we
Yeah,
connect again.
no, definitely
But
not.
I'll look forward to the next time. And thanks everybody for tuning in.